Hey everyone. In today's episode, I got a chance to sit down and talk with Marnie Ochs-Raleigh, owner of digital marketing agency Evolve Systems out of St. Paul, Minnesota. Marnie and her team recently underwent a huge rebranding effort of their agency, and she talked to me a bit about the process. She also shared about how she balances client deliverables alongside the business of building out her agency and how she and her team identify the ideal clients to serve. As always, when I talked to Marnie, it was a great conversation and it was super tactical and really valuable for anybody who's really looking to grow their agency. So let's get into it. So Marnie, it's great having you on. It's been a while.
Eric, it has been a while. It's great to see you and hear you again.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, you too. It's I think the last time we talked when I just started my role maybe 6 months ago or something like that, 5 months ago, and we were having this conversation because I was interviewing you as a customer, as a partner, and trying to understand a little bit more about, you know, what was working, what wasn't working, and just trying to dial in, our own conversations and our own marketing. So this was, I've taken a lot away from those conversations, and so here we are again.
That's one of the things that I've really appreciated about SharpSpring is that your team truly does care about the partners that you're selecting, and the team at Evolve Systems has just been delighted in the responses, the response time, and the consideration that goes into being a true partner. So we appreciate the opportunities to talk with you, and that you are interested as to what's going on outside of your own environment.
Well, I think one of the things that I would say is, like, conversations like this one are, this qualitative understanding about who you are, how you run your agency, what your goals are, how you use SharpSpring, and then that feedback does make its way back into the conversation. When we talk about things like roadmap, and that's the only way I think you can do it well, right? So it's qualitative and quantitative, and we're trying to get better at both. So I think to that end, I had a few questions just to talk through, and maybe I'll just start with this one. So how do you, as an agency, so you run Evolve Systems, and you are looking at, you're working with your clients on a daily basis, you're in SharpSpring on a daily basis. What is it that you sort of find is the most meaningful when it comes to just working with your clients? Like, somebody who's not using SharpSpring, what do you tell them? What do you talk about?
Yeah, that's a really loaded question. I could go down multiple different paths with that, but the first thing that really comes to mind is, just setting the stage to anybody that's listening that I am your average agency owner, that there's deliverable work and there's times that you work on the business, and then there's times that you work in the business, and making sure that you schedule that time accordingly, so that you can get that long-term success is really important. And I use that SharpSpring tool for that specific purpose. So when you're talking about how we work with it for our clients, you can either look at that from the CRM perspective, or you can look at it from the marketing automation perspective. And from the CRM, it really helps us to manage clients, that the task feature in helping us to remember when we need to do check-ins, when we need to schedule different events, or just even the engagement piece. And I love having MailSync, because as a smaller digital marketing agency, we've got 14 people, and we do a really great job of staying in our own defined swim lanes. But as life happens, there's different things that we need to make sure to stay in touch with people. So even having that MailSync tool is a huge asset for us, because we can, look back to what historic conversations have been. And that has been so helpful, because you can see all the emails. But, to answer your question from the side of what we're doing with it for our clients, it's really setting up the different workflows and the triggers that happen, and making sure that even on our own website, that when somebody does fill out a form to get additional information, that we can see the journey that somebody has visited our website. So it helps us to make sure that the time that we're spending with leads that come in, that they're qualified leads, and that we already know quite a bit about what that opportunity looks like. And we can then in turn synthesize that data, not only for ourselves, but for our clients that are utilizing the tool. So it is a great benefit from both sides of that equation.
So you're using it for yourself
Mm-hmm.
as you are potentially having conversations or want to develop touch points with, prospective clients, and then you are putting clients on SharpSpring in order to be able to help them grow their business, develop lead flows and drive more closed won deals. I guess here's my follow up to that, if that's how you're using it. So what is the typical client for you? Like, what do you typically want to look for in the perfect client?
So our ideal client, and what the goal is for our agency, is to be known in the Twin Cities. So we hail from Minnesota, so Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's our goal to be known as the premier digital marketing agency that services the middle market in B2B businesses. So it works ideally for us when we're able to, grab a hold of contacts and then market directly to our ideal audience.
So what is that impetus then for why somebody picks up the phone and actually calls you? Like, what's their pain point?
Their pain point can be multiple different things. We are focusing each quarter on a specific market segment. So, for example, we have a manufacturing, what we call a brick. As a frame of reference, our agency was selected by the Accelerate Your Agency series, where we had the opportunity to work with Jay Baer and Ann Hanley. And the suggestions that they had given our agency to upgrade to were quite significant. It was a very heavy lift, and we embraced that hard work. Our team was committed to taking their recommendations. And one of the recommendations was that we come up with what is called a marketing brick, or a really great piece of content, or like an ebook. So our launch for Q4 was in the manufacturing space, because that falls right within what our ideal client is of who we want to work with. We have quite a few manufacturing clients that we work with, so we were able to create the case studies on the successes we've created for current clients to use, and then utilizing SharpSpring with that content. And so it really goes back to content is still king. And, people will ask, how much does it take to put the content together? And, that's how much content do you want to be creating, and where does that look like? And then understanding that, like, the next piece that we're focused in on is we hear of so many different businesses that are looking to exit. I mean, the boomers that are owning businesses, they're tired. They went through a depression in 2018. They have now gone through a pandemic. They're in their 60s, 70s, and they need to understand that as the primary revenue generator for a lot of these organizations, they have the contacts. That's their warm referrals. They haven't been doing marketing. And business owners right now need to invest in solid marketing so that they can add enterprise value to their bottom line. And what a better way to do that with marketing automation. Business owners have had to invest in technology. They understand that technology can create efficiencies, that it can help them to really understand what their sales funnel looks like in creating that, and then aligning what SharpSpring's communication path is. And we call it just, here's your SharpSpring plan, even though it's your marketing automation plan, but we put your name out there as much as we can, is really how can you use this tool to make your life easier, to add value to your bottom line. And it's really easy to show an owner how that happens when you can go back into SharpSpring and show the tools, and they can see the hits that are coming to their website. They can see the clients that they're interacting with, and they can create the reports that they're wanting to then fill in whatever scorecard they're keeping track of.
So I think that's interesting. There's a need for small business owners who are looking to exit to not only maintain and have sort of a clear record of who their contacts are, because a lot of times they are, the lead salesperson, right? Multiple hats that they're wearing. But then there's also the desire of a business buyer. In my past life, that's what I used to do, right? Was
Okay.
I would buy like these small companies that were in like the 1 to 5 million range, something like that. And one of the things that I would always be looking at is, how did that business owner, seller, get to the point where it's not all about them, and they've got some systems in place, they've got processes in place, and it's not all up in that owner's head. And if they leave, so goes the clients and or customers, right? And so I'm always looking for, or I was always looking for, businesses that really had those processes in place.
Right.
And it just occurred to me, like, as you were talking me through that, like how important something like that is, to have a real marketing plan in place, where it's not all under one person's Rolodex, so to speak, or in the back of their mind. So interesting. So there's just in terms of the clients, I want to go back to one more thing. So you develop these marketing bricks. You break them down by industry segment, right? You focus on one sort of segment per quarter. And what is the optimal size of a client for you? It's obviously B2B, but is there like a ACV you target? Like, how do you narrow that in?
Well, it's difficult to always just go by revenue, because if they're manufacturing larger ticket items, then the revenue is a lot higher, but they don't have the infrastructure to do marketing. So we look at it as anywhere from like 5 million to 500 million. And really, for us, for our team, our comfort level is working with that company that does have somebody sitting in the marketing seat, so that it's not all the decisions are being run specifically by the business owner, because the next time that there's a fire in the house, the business owner's attention goes to the fire. And we want to make sure that they've got somebody in that seat that can keep the ball moving forward, and that can assist in executing on the marketing items that need to get done, that they've got the capacity and the knowledge, and they enjoy doing that. And then we put together our marketing plans based around what customizations do we need to do to our monthly plan that is going to help them achieve what the best outcomes are. And so those monthly recommendations are real important to be spot on. And SharpSpring is just a part of what those recommendations are, because you can spend all the time in the world with really great email marketing, but if you send them to a website that doesn't have the right messaging, you're never going to be successful in getting that conversion that you're after. So what does that look like too? And that's where we really enjoy putting that strategy work into what people are doing.
So the strategy piece of it is core to the work, and then the execution is obviously campaign execution, et cetera. How do you typically go in, and is it all retainer based? Is it do you have some performance based agreements? Like, how do you typically approach it?
So we have a goal. I feel like I'm giving away some of our secret sauce here, which I'm happy to do. So I'm not sure if you're after this.
We can cut this part out, by the way.
No, that's fine. I think it's valuable, but like for me personally, whether this is right, wrong, or indifferent, for our agency, we want to make sure that we've got enough recurring revenue that each month we're not scrambling trying to sell something, so that we can be very particular with the ideal client that we want to work with. And that ideal client is based on a variety of different things. It's not just money, because you can have all the biggest budget and not work with people that you enjoy working with. Or you could have really great people that you like to work with, and they can't afford to do everything that needs to be done where they're going to see a significant impact. So, there's a lot of give and take that happens with that. And when we are working with clients, and knowing that our goal is that we want to capture that recurring revenue or those marketing retainers that you're referring to, it really does come down to what are the goals of the organization. And if the goals are that they want to receive so many clicks, or they want to sell this many machines, or they're wanting to have this many signups for an event, we have to be very specific, because I think we've all learned through COVID that anybody who takes that shotgun approach at marketing, that's just exactly it. You're going to hit too many random things to see any type of marketing momentum that the business owner really wants. And so we like to provide and understand what is it that the client is measuring, because what we want to measure may be totally different than what the client wants to measure. And so we do have those monthly recap calls that go into those types of details. What does success look like for the client? And sometimes it may be that they want to make sure that they're doing an open house, and they want to make sure that they're driving people to the open house, where then they can convert that into sales because they've showcased off what it is that they're working on. Or maybe it's that they're going to be coming out with something new, and they want to be creating a really big splash, and they want all of their current clients to know that here's additional services or products that they offer. So each client has got their own goals, and that's what we work towards together.
So when you get these alignment, or when you go into these alignment meetings, are you working so this is always a fascinating conversation topic for me.
Yeah.
So do you go in and do you direct the conversation saying these are the KPIs that really are going to make sense, your lead to op level, conversion rate, or what's happening in your pipeline, sales velocity is improving, like all of those things, your win rates, like is that something that you not only, it's not just reporting on, but I find that there are a lot of clients that are out there that are really not necessarily paying attention to the right KPIs that are going to drive their business.
Yeah.
They're more interested in campaigns, or they're more interested in, some other aspect of marketing. And they're being prescriptive about what it is that they want their agency to do. And I'm kind of curious, like, how do you come to the table and say, this is what we're seeing that are major levers that are going to get you to your revenue target this year, and these are the things that we should be paying attention to, these are the things that we should be reporting on or measuring on? Do you do that sort of thing, or is it a different dynamic?
Well, I think that we can all agree that there's always moving targets, and what you start off at the beginning of the year of what success is going to look like, it could change. And I think that's why it's really critical to have a monthly conversation with the decision makers of the organization. And what we have found is that somebody who's sitting in the marketing seat may have a completely different KPI that they're after than what the business owner is after. So we've done a really great job with our team members in knowing what are the right questions that we're needing to ask. And we will start out with like discussing, here's what Google is showing. Here's what your performance has been. This is where we're seeing the traffic that's coming from. They're coming to this page. This is what you've wanted us to promote. Now what? Where does this fall in your funnel? What are the internal efforts that your team is doing? Because you can't a business owner cannot rely on an outside marketing agency to do all of their sales development work or all of their brand recognition work. There has to be a partnership. And I think that when we have those monthly meetings with the right people at the table, that's where you can get that synergy to be really working forward. So we spend a lot of time talking about that and discussing, are these the right KPIs that you are wanting? And sometimes it's even asking the business owner if they've got a board of directors that they need to reply to or that they're held accountable to. What is it that the board wants? So that we're not scrambling at the end of a quarter or midpoint through the year to say, oh, by the way, I need to know what this was. It's like, no. Let's do it right from the beginning. So we really believe that communication is key, and really understanding what the ultimate goals are, and then you can talk about celebrating those successes.
You hit on my favorite subject to talk about, by the way. You said sometimes the marketing team doesn't have the same objective as the business owner.
Yeah.
And that is a recipe for all sorts of problems downstream, right? Do you find yourself in a sort of coach, counselor role with the marketing leader saying, these are the things that you should be paying attention to because these are the business outcomes that are driving, success and, in other words, I want to start a meme for all marketers saying it's not about the campaign, silly.
Yeah.
Right. It's not. And it's not. It's about what is the campaign drive for business outcomes. And otherwise the campaign isn't effort, time, resources, budget well spent. Mm-hmm. So what is do you find yourself in that position just, as you're talking through with?
Yeah, oftentimes. And, we will take a philosophy here at our agency. What happens if somebody gets hit by the bus? And so we want to make sure that we have all of our processes that are clearly documented. And one of our processes that we follow our 5-step process. And that is that we always start with strategy, then we'll move into design, then we'll move into development, then we move into marketing, and then we move on to ongoing support. And those 5 steps have kept us out of trouble. If we have a company that wants us to start marketing right away, but yet what we push to a website isn't in order, you're not going to get any return on investment that they're looking for. And so sometimes you have to take 2 steps back in order to take a big leap forward. And we're very transparent with our communications, and we are okay having that tough conversation to say, you want us to do this, however, you're not going to get the results, and here's why. And when you can talk strategically with a business owner to understand, here's the conflict between sales and here's the conflict between marketing. And within your own team, where can you join those 2 groups together so that they're not at odds with each other as you see in so many organizations, but rather they fall under that same umbrella as a revenue team. And once they get aligned, that's where you start to see the sales team being proactive to say, hey, we have an event in 3 months. Marketing, this is what we're wanting to do. This is what we see. Give them enough time to work up to be able to do that, rather than, giving somebody a task a week before and say, oh, sorry, we forgot this was coming up. Can you do something for it? So it's about strategic planning and putting together a solid marketing plan that you deliver on.
What do you typically see with a brand new client where you're just firing up with them, right? And they're coming to you. What does their typical tech stack look like?
They want results right away. Everybody wants to have those results right away. And really what it looks like is having to take that step back and reminding them that they promised that they were going to be patient for 6 months. Yeah. They have to make that 6-month commitment. You can get results before that, but before they are making their decision, that's where it needs to be. And, we use a red, yellow, green light process with our team. And so at any point, if the client is feeling that they're at a yellow light or a team member is, we want to call that out so that we can get ahead of it. If something lands on a red light, that means that everything is stopped and we're either determining how can we get this back to green, or do we need to part company? And, we don't like the latter, but every once in a while that will happen. And a majority of the time we're able to get it back to green light because it usually boils down to communication. Yeah.
Yeah. And organizational buy-in at the top, right?
Right.
Those are always 2 big ones. Mm-hmm. What sort of tools do they use before they become clients? Like, what are you inheriting when you come in?
Usually a disjointed WordPress website that hasn't been updated in a long time and has a lot of modules that haven't been updated. And we'll inherit connection with Google where their Google accounts aren't set up correctly. So they're not delivering the correct amount of information. So we see a lot of broken accounts that way. And we see LinkedIn accounts that are sitting there that haven't been used at all, and blogs that are over a year old that are prominently displayed on their website. And their SEO modules are being used with the website. So it's just pulling random words rather than targeted keywords that they're after. So there's usually a pretty big cleanup that needs to be done. And that's when you start to see the fun stuff. And I think that's where, that's your opportunity to really build trust with the client, because they can't see what it is that you're doing on the back end. And sometimes if it's a mess, you got to take a screenshot and show them here's before and here's after, so that they can understand what it is that you're doing. A lot of them know that they have a mess, but they don't know to the degree of the mess. And we just do a nice job of communicating. This is how much time this is going to take to fix it.
Are they typically using a CRM? Are they using marketing automation? Are they using an email tool? Are they using a chat bot? Like, are they what are they typically doing before you come in?
They have done email newsletters with either Constant Contact or MailChimp. Every once in a while, we'll get an old CRM system that's antiquated and isn't necessarily working because they've had so many people come and go and nobody's put in the right data, so they can't get accurate information coming out of it. And their email lists are usually outdated, so we'll have to go through and scrub that. And once they see all the systems starting to work together and doing a full marketing campaign with that, then they can understand what the value is. But that takes time. I mean, it takes a lot of effort, and that's one of the reasons that we enjoy working with those clients that do have somebody in the marketing seat, because those are tasks that they can do internally that the business owner is not going to be doing on the weekends or in the evening. So tools for automation it's a huge ticket item right now.
So how big is the standard marketing, and same question for sales team? How big are the teams when you come in? Are they one person shows? Are they, there's 3 or 4 marketers, and, they have specific job functions within the marketing team, and you've got a sales team where you've got, 4 BDRs and 2 AEs. Like how does that typically work for clients?
It's all over the board. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's all over the board. I mean, we've got clients that'll have, 4 to 5 people in sales, and then they have somebody in the marketing seat. And the person sitting in the marketing seat may be called the marketing director, but they're spending most of their time writing responses to RFP proposals or sending out proposals. And so they're not dedicated.
And managing people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's interesting. So do you have so it's all, most of these are B2B companies that are sales led,
mm-hmm.
right? Sales driven, sales directors making a lot of the budget related decisions. Marketing is sort of struggling to feed the sales team somewhere along the line, right? They recognize that they're not going to get it all done. They don't necessarily want to hire new folks to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So what ends up happening is they bring in an agency to help augment their marketing team.
Well, and a lot of times we see that the business owners will have a friend of a friend or their kid's girlfriend, and they'll come in and they start learning, and they do a great job. I mean, they're very enthusiastic, but their skills are limited. I mean, Google has become so complicated, and the different marketing automation programs to set one up, you need to have experience in the market. You need to understand how that works. So it is a moving target for them, and they need to have assistance in putting together that marketing plan, and then also the accountability. And that's where business owners really enjoy working with our process, because they know that we hold their team accountable. We agree, here's the program that's going to happen. If you don't deliver to us, we can't deliver to you. So when our reports come back through, here's the void. It's very easy to see where the fingers can get pointed.
Do you, as you're thinking about working with the leaders of a particular client, who's your biggest internal champion?
The client's biggest internal champion can be either somebody in the sales spot because they're suddenly getting warm, qualified leads coming through the website. So it's
They
really,
become your new best friend.
yeah, it's really
Okay.
easy to work with them. And a lot of times too, it's the marketing seat because they start seeing the activity and they're able to show here's the benefit of all the programs that have been put together. So it just depends on how much flexibility and freedom that the teams have. So if you're working with a business owner that has got they're a little more micromanaging than what they probably want to do, that's really hard to get things done because everything has to go through a different approval process.
So so sales leaders typically calling the shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a point of contact who I guarantee you is probably not the sales leader. So, because they're busy writing up RFPs.
Mm-hmm.
So who is your point of contact if that's not the decision maker?
Yeah, it's different with each client.
Yeah.
It really is. And, we work with a couple clients that are very collaborative in nature where they have a great representation of somebody in the C-suite that joins.
Yeah.
They've got somebody that is in the marketing role that is a part of it. And then they have somebody in the sales. And so when you have that type of collaboration where the culture of the company that you're working with is really healthy, it's so much easier to get things done because they're not trying to stop or block any type of internal biases. They're have that freedom to be able to make the decisions and move things forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like anybody that can, like when you can reduce that friction in the organization and the decision making that needs to happen, and there's trust that's built up. That's when you get that sort of the machine rolling in the right direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, interesting. So you have a team, 14 people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you break them up, right? So a lot of folks that listen to this podcast are always fascinated by like what other agencies doing and where are they seeing success around how they just manage their own business, right? So like that's always the biggest trick. Mostly in any kind of professional services is really just managing your own, keep your own house in order. And so I guess I'm like, you have 14 folks. How do they break up? Do you have them like, how does that work organizationally?
So
what are their swim lanes, as you were saying?
Lanes. We use a program here called Traction, and it's the EOS, so the Entrepreneurs Operating System, and we've been using it now for 6 years, and that is a really great format for business owners that are wanting to actively grow and not to be controlled by their business. And it provides a process and a communication path for decisions to be getting made appropriately. So we have managers that are working with their delivery teams. And so we have design and development, and then we have the marketing teams and their deliverables. And we also recognize and understand that individual people have got different goals and dreams that they're wanting to continue to learn more about. And so we are actually in the process right now of going through and restructuring what our accountability chart looks like and shifting goals around because we're looking at bringing in additional team members that have fantastic skills, and yet it's similar to other swim lanes. And so where do we balance that work? And where do we find the most type of effective work? So for example, if you've got creative writing versus technical writing for a client, you want to make sure that the team member that enjoys it the most, they're going to be the most efficient with it. And so you balance that workload out based off of what those skills are, rather than saying, here's your swim lane, find somebody to do it and just go to town. That doesn't work. So we have to, we do it very carefully, and we try to be considerate because as a service-based organization, my team is my biggest asset, and they're the ones that I take care of. And when we've got, when we have an opportunity to have somebody, flex, we want to give that to them. It's my job to help mentor the people in our team, just as it is my job as a woman business owner for over 20 years to continue to mentor other women business owners in the community. You have to pay it forward and you have to give back.
I like that. There's a pretty consistent theme throughout, which is we want to make this business scale and grow and make it not solely dependent on, the founder, right? And I think that's where a lot of professional services gets into trouble. Agencies get into trouble is, that's the struggle, is just they're the idea person and then they're wearing the other 17 hats too. And what you're saying is, there's still strategic decisions that you're making, but you also are trusting that the organization is got the right pieces in place to be able to go on, sort of without you. Is there a do you have like department names? So like, this is strategy, this is ops, this is creative, this is content. Like, do you have that, or do you not slice it up that way?
No, we don't slice it up that way. We're not big enough for that. So I know that's something that we see down the road. But right now we have it broken into, here's our revenue generation team, or RevOps. And his role is working specifically with new opportunities. We have our account managers. We have our delivery teams in marketing. So that's divided between working with Google, the pay-per-clicks, the search engine optimizations, and then also putting together marketing plans and the delivery, so content creation. And the designer is leading the creative part with that. And then we've got our program managers that manage what all the deliverable aspects are and the communications with the clients. So we're a strong but mighty team in what we are producing, and we've done some really big pivots in the last couple of years. And I often joke that I'm not the typical agency owner, because everybody that I hire needs to be smarter than I am. And I do not participate with a lot of the delivery work, because I have three main jobs, and that is business development, hiring people that are smarter than I am, and removing obstacles in the way of my team so they can be successful and deliver the best client work possible.
So I think that's a really good segue too, because people who are listening to this are saying, or some of them are saying, this is great. You've got things in order, you're working things out, you have swim lanes for your team. How does that translate to client success? So let's talk about that really quickly. Sure. So do you have, and you don't have to use names or anything like that, but can you set up the story where like let's think of this like it's a case study.
Okay.
So client A comes to you, they're in this kind of business, there's roughly this big, right? This is the business problem that they're trying to solve. This is what you learned and implemented, and here are the results. So is there do you have like a story that sort of comes to mind when I say that?
I'm thinking of our process and how that would work with a client. And I do have somebody that can come to mind for that. When we have an opportunity that presents itself, our first step is to go through and identify, is it going to be an ideal client for our team? Are the needs that the client has fall within what our success and what we feel comfortable doing? Now, being comfortable and then also stretching and learning and understanding what needs to be done are two different things. And
it's a fine line sometimes too.
It really truly is. And we take a real honest approach to that. So there has been clients that what they're needing, we don't have the right skill set on the bench to do it, and we'll let them know, because sometimes the best work is the work that you don't get. And we, in the past, we were a lot more motivated to take on innovative work where we were learning as we went, and the client knew that we were doing that. And it's not as profitable, and it's a lot more stressful on the team. And so we made the decision several years ago to, if we want to be innovative, we're doing it on side projects for our own, but otherwise we're making sure that things that we're working with clients, we know that we're going to have the success on, because everybody likes to sleep at night. And we want to make sure that we're delivering a quality product. And Minnesotans are kind of famous for known for their passive aggressive statements, where, is that as good as you got? Or, well, I guess that'll do if that's the best you can do. And it's like, we just poured our heart into this for, how many hours? What are you talking about? So it's really about setting those expectations. So our first step is to really understand from the standpoint of what the client thinks is going to be successful and what is it that they want to achieve. And we'll do the first vetting session with that. And if they pass what our intake qualifications are, then we'll do an introduction and perform a discovery strategy session where we can do a deep dive. So the team members that are working on the projects can do that deep dive into understanding, here's the strategy, here's what has to be put together for it, here's how we need to work it. And then we'll put together our pricing schedule for it. And then the client has the opportunity. They're either going to agree to trust us and they want to be partners with us, or they will select somebody else. And there's more than enough work out there for everybody so that you can be picky with who it is that you're wanting to work with. So like a specific client came to us and said, we have a goal in mind. We've got information that we're needing to get taken care of. We are currently in a smaller community. We want to expand our business, and we want to not only grow regionally, but we have a desire to be opening another business in the southern part of the country. And it's like, okay, well, this sounds like a lot of business owners where they want to figure out where they want to retire. So therefore they're going to start a business in that area. So it's like, how do you do that? And how do you expand upon what they're currently doing so that you can give them the tools to help that entrepreneur or that business owner dream? But you have to understand what those dreams are, because if it's a moving target, you're never going to hit it. Did that answer your question?
I think so. I let me maybe ask one additional piece to that just to fill it out. Okay. So let's say you have a client. Do you have like a story of a client that's come to you recently or within the last year or so where you felt like you really knocked it out of the park?
Well, of course. We wouldn't be in business if we didn't feel that way. We have a client that came to us. They had a relative do a custom development for a website that they spent way too much money on, and it never worked. And this is an international client, so they do classes throughout the country here, but then they also do quite a bit of traveling abroad. And they were having a very hard time with trust because they had been burned. And so that's ironically one of the questions that we ask when we're pre-qualifying somebody. Tell us about your previous experience with your marketing partner and why did that end? So we know what to stay out of. And it took a little bit of time to be able to earn their trust, but we in turn completely built out their website and then integrated that with their event scheduling program, which we did the research and recommendations for, and it's perfect for them. Absolutely perfect. And we did the full integration for that. And at that point, we thought this project was going to be over. And instead, we just stay in contact with our clients, and they have turned in to be one of our larger marketing clients. We love working with them. And each month we're providing several different services to them, and their business continues to grow. And we've had very candid conversations with the business owner, specifically teaching him how to understand what the metrics and the KPIs really are, so that he can see, here's the money that he's invested and here's the return that he's gotten. And we've been able to specifically track that to show, here's the email messages that have gone out, here's what your click-through rate is, here's how they're coming in on your landing page, here's the conversion that you've been able to do. You spent this much money, you sold this much. And they're happy. He's like, I have been trying to have this conversation with marketing agencies for the last 20 years, and nobody's been able to explain it to me to where I get it. And he's like, I want to spend more money. And we're like, that's a win-win. So sometimes it's like getting into the narrative of the business owner's mind. And, you know, agency owners, if you've got your team members that are talking to business owners, sometimes you might need to jump into that conversation, because a business owner will talk differently to a business owner than what they do to a team member. And it would be worth your time to hop on those calls from occasionally to really understand that.
And that's one of your 3 pillars of your role, right? Is business development and having those types of conversations. So I can understand why you carve out a significant portion of your time to do that. And you're right. You're absolutely right, by the way. You know, the conversation that an executive has or a business owner has is different when they think about talking with a peer who is also facing the same challenges, and you know, they understand sort of the business side of why they do what they do. And I would also go back to an earlier point that we were making about marketing needs to be aligned to business outcomes, not campaigns.
Right.
And you know, the best marketing is absolutely super creative and fun and you know, effective. Those are things that you should focus on a tactical level, but they should always lead up to what is the revenue, like the pipeline or the revenue or the business outcome that you're trying to achieve. And, you know, sometimes that, you know, as simple as that sounds, that is the thing, right? That marketing needs to figure out and be able to communicate effectively. And I would say the same thing for agencies, by the way, right? So agencies are, when they're reporting on metrics like, you know, here's how your campaign did, or here's your click-through rate or your impressions, that's fine for your marketing point of contact. But you have to shift the conversation to business outcomes when you're talking to a different person in the organization. Anybody who's basically non-marketing, right? You know, so obviously CFO, CEO, what they're looking for is a completely different metric, success metric. And a lot of times what happens is when you are an agency and you walk in and you start talking about things that are tactical, you lose credibility and you don't know it. And that is like a quick tip that is just a minor shift in the way that you talk, but is huge in terms of, you know, building relationship, authority, credibility, you know, as their agency.
Well, I like the point that you made, Eric, in saying that, you know, you can do campaigns till you're blue in the face, but the reality is a campaign is a campaign is a campaign. If it doesn't deliver the value, the owner of the company could care less about it. They don't care what it looks like. They don't care what the message is. They don't care that you source the ultimate image. What they care about is the end result, and that's the piece that you need to talk about. And you know, you also have to understand what the owner's threshold for risk is. You know, are they willing to take a risk? Are they willing to run multiple different campaigns? And I think that that we're seeing business owners starting to think differently now that we're coming out of COVID. Instead of the desperation, they're now looking long-term strategy. And that feels great, because that's where those marketing plans can really be effective. I mean, you still can't put together a marketing plan for a whole year. I mean, you can put it loosely together, but in 6 months from now, it's going to be completely different. So how are you going to be able to pivot? And your campaigns are a part of that. And so it's like, you've got to stay on top of what their outcomes are that they're needing to hit.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And there's such a I think opportunity for anybody who is an agency now, where they are able to communicate that value, be able to talk through that narrative, right, and help help
Mm-hmm.
business owners understand that now is the time to invest, and and sort of hit those business objectives.
Mm-hmm.
um, and again, any way that you can communicate the creative work you do or the strategy work you do with business outcomes, campaign design, whatever, to
Yeah.
business outcomes, that's huge.
Yeah.
So okay, last question.
Okay.
And you've allowed me to sort of pelt you with questions for the last hour. I'm going to sort of turn the tables
Mm-hmm.
really quickly and just sort of open it up. Do you have any questions for me, or anything that I specifically could help you with?
So, had I not recently talked to several key people at SharpSpring, I would have different questions. However, your team is so fantastic that they allow me to ask all kinds of really random questions, and then we agree to laugh at each other about it. But
Right.
I would say to you, Eric, I am curious, what are your goals with this podcast? Are you
Yeah.
trying to recruit additional agencies to be aware of your tools, or are you trying to give other agencies a glimpse at other people's success stories so that they can learn
Yeah.
from?
Yeah.
How are you wanting to position your platform here?
So it's funny you actually asked that question, because um, you were unknowingly, unwittingly part of the reason why I did the podcast.
Okay.
Uh, and so we talked prior to this, but um, 5 months ago, I started interviewing customers. I started interviewing agencies. I started interviewing SMBs that were using our product, for me to help get me better at my job, to understand better about our customers,
Mm-hmm.
and our partners. And um, it evolved into the podcast. So you were one of maybe 20 or so, partners that I had talked to, I kept thinking to myself, there's so much really rich content that's in here. We should be using it, and we should be um, helping other agencies grow. And it's never been about like, can we use SharpSpring? Like, can we pitch SharpSpring every 5 minutes? It's actually like, you won't hear me talk a lot about SharpSpring at all in any of the episodes. But the core of it is really the content that comes out of it. So conversations like this one, case studies like this one, and success stories, and what's happening within an agency that makes them successful.
Mm-hmm.
Are there things that we can sort of pull out of that helps us to tell the story for other agencies that are going through some of the same stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, like, it's partners, and then it's also businesses, because it's interesting, but there's a lot of the same exact challenges that you hear: sales and marketing alignment. I need a unified database to tell me what all's happening across my different pieces of the funnel. I need all of these things under one roof so I can see what's going on in a holistic fashion. What's driving, like, what campaigns are actually driving deals, that sort of thing. And it became the podcast. So I think this is like our 40th or 50th episode that I've probably done in the last few months, and I do them every week. I do probably 3 of them a week, something like that. And so it still is becoming, like, yours has been my primary source of feedback, so I can understand our customers better. But then we're doubling up on it and saying there's a ton of really good content in here too. So we use it for both.
So to respond to that, I think what I would be remiss in not sharing this with other agency owners is that sometimes it's really lonely sitting in the owner's chair, no matter what type of team you have around you. And SharpSpring has reached out to our agency in meaningful ways that has really, changed our perception on how we want to do business. And I'm not saying this as a commercial for SharpSpring. This is reality for our world. And, we have had the opportunity to meet other agency owners where we have had meaningful conversations. And Sheena Graham, who is another SharpSpring person, her and I had the opportunity to do a webinar with each other. And I'm a huge proponent that webinars are they're of value, but the only way that you're going to get a good panel discussion is if you've got some familiarity with each other. You can't just stick a couple people up there and expect it to be an engaging conversation. So her and I made the commitment to each other that we were going to meet multiple times leading up to our session that we did together. Mm-hmm. And what SharpSpring has done, unbeknownst to your team, is that Sheena and I have become very good friends. And we get together and not only have our teams collaborate with each other on a monthly call, but her and I also get together and collaborate. And it's ironic because the items that my business is very strong in, her business is weak in. And the areas that her primary revenue drivers are items that I'm wanting to accelerate our team with. And so much so that when I head on spring break, I'm getting together with her in person. And, that is just one small success story that your team may not be aware of. And I think it is something to celebrate because we are all stronger when we work together. And I think that's a piece that even you reaching out to do a podcast like this is to let business owners know we're here for each other. And that whatever it is that you're going through, whether it's outside influences from your personal life that drag into your business, or it's client issues that suddenly become your problem, that together we are stronger and we need to stick together. And it is not about who's going to get the richest the quickest. That's not what it's about. It really is about how do we encourage our team to get their best life that they can get? How do we encourage each other as business owners to be the best leaders that we can be? How is it that we can make impacts in our local community? And just utilizing a tool like this can do that. And the influence that we have with our agency with utilizing this tool has been so phenomenal that it gave us hope when sometimes it didn't feel like there was hope. And our future looks really great because of situations like this. So I want to thank you for taking the time and recognizing that here's an opportunity that you can add value that you didn't even know that you were necessarily adding value in. And it's happening in a magnificent way.
So I think that just made my whole week. I really do.
Well, maybe I should have practiced.
No, it did. I mean, it made my whole week because, look, we work super hard. We have a ton of people that are working behind the scenes that you're obviously, you come in contact with as well, and support, customer success, product dev, marketing. Like it's cliche. It sounds like it's a cliche, but it's a team effort, right? And so, but the fact that it comes off that way to somebody who is, a partner and feels that way is really cool, and I appreciate that. So, just sort of made my whole week. Anyway, so Marnie, I've taken up enough of your time. I really do appreciate it. There's like so much I think that came out of this episode that a lot of agencies I think are going to resonate with, and so, I think we should keep doing this, right? We should be talking more, and over the next several months or something. I think there's a lot of neat things that are coming down the road. We should be having conversations like this one. So this is cool. No, and I'm around if you have anything, like, obviously anything I can do. You've got my contact info. Happy to be a sounding board or whatever.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's
Awesome.
there's always lots of life activities that go on, and knowing that SharpSpring is a constant for our team
Yeah.
is part of our success.
Yeah. That's cool. That's very cool. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, you just made my whole week. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Take care.